Hello, everybody. Happy Wealth and Wellness Wednesday. Welcome to Transcend with NNG, where I am your host, Brittany Walker, also known as New Nation Goddess. We've made it to season 2, episode 6, which is going to be talking about our 5th frequency of elevation, knowledge acquisition. So we're going to learn how to acquire knowledge in order to thoroughly fulfill our purpose, acquire wealth, and also achieve optimal wellness. So we like to kick it off with the I am power statement, I representing inspiration, A representing affirmation, and M representing manifestation. So for today, the I am power statement is I am open to receiving information, even if that means having to unlearn comfortable conditions. Ashe. We also have a tea of the day. And today, guys, I am drinking a hibiscus vanilla latte. So I have some sorrel in here. That's Jamaican hibiscus, which is going to be good for mucus. It is the winter time, so we want to make sure that we're pulling unwanted toxins out the body. I also have orange peel in here, ginger, cinnamon, turmeric, and oat milk. So very good for the body. It hits you with all of the macronutrients that you need for the day. So your proteins, your complex carbs, your healthy fats, which are coming from the oats, and water. All right, guys. So cheers to you. And I am so excited about today, guys. I have talked to you several times before about this amazing person named Derrick Moultrie, also known as DJ. He is the founder of the Black Equity Network. You can also check him out with the Black Equity Podcast. Also the founder of the Acquisitions Network, and you can also listen to that podcast as well. So I want to definitely bring him on. I've talked about him being a mentor to our family. He helped me to transcend to where I am today. So can you please welcome DJ Moultrie, guys? Hello, DJ.
Hey, how are you doing?
Doing pretty well today. How are you doing?
I'm excited. I always love season 2s of anything because you really get to see the foundation somebody set in season 1. So I'm excited for everything that you have been building.
Thank you so much. Gratitude for that. I am so excited about today because knowledge acquisition, I just feel that in our culture, we don't acquire enough of the right, legitimate, and reputable knowledge. We tend to follow what the celebrities or who we're told are our Black leaders. And I don't know who chose these people to be leaders, but I just love having these really interesting conversations with you because I know that we're going to speak the real and we're going to speak the raw in order for our people who we're meant to serve in this new nation can fully transcend and become who they're meant to be in this lifetime.
I'm ready. Let's dive in.
Absolutely. So every episode, we like to, of course, introduce the book of the day. And so we want to know what book helped you to define your purpose or help you to get to where you are today.
I've been thinking about this. I have a lot of books that I cherish. Of course, I want to throw in a couple of books that are must-haves. The Holy Bible and Richest Man in Babylon. Those are always things that I reference a lot. And so it's not necessarily that this book is over those books, but the book that's on my spirit today is Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill.
Okay.
That book, oh my goodness, when Napoleon Hill is using his imagination to interview the devil and the answers that the devil gives of how he manipulates people through their mind. His number one goal is to keep people in poverty. And he does that by not allowing them to have, not allowing their minds to be free. And so this episode is so important because if you can tap into the right information, the devil can't get to you. But you got to know where to look and you got to know how to be on the right frequency so you can create heaven on earth.
That sounds like an amazing book. Guys, I'm definitely going to be putting that information in the description so you too can check it out. So let's go ahead and get into this conversation. So what are your favorite resources when it comes to acquiring knowledge? You know, we have in our history that we weren't able to read and write at one point. And I feel like a lot of our people are taking advantage of not being able to thoroughly get the proper knowledge. So where are you seeking those resources?
Now, this is not necessarily what most people are going to tell you. If you pull up some course or something, or read a book about this, the answers I may give today, it may not be typical and it may not be traditional. And first of all, I want to let people know I know nothing. And that's how I'm able to find things, because I walk in knowing nothing and I want to find out the wisdom. And so I'm going to ask you a question. Have you ever watched the movie Ready Player One?
No, I'm not familiar with it.
I can't remember who produced it or who directed it. But basically, in that movie, it tells us that all the pieces of wisdom that we need to know are hidden inside of pop culture. And when I was watching the movie, I was saying, exactly. Because before I seen that movie, I would always find pieces of nuggets of wisdom hidden in an interview somewhere, or in a cartoon, or I may be watching a movie or a TV show, or my favorite, it's hidden inside of the music. It may just be the last lyric to something. So I know that's not the typical answer that most people are going to give, but I have found that hidden within our society is the truth.
Yes.
And that's how you start knowing if you've kind of pushed the fake away, is you're able to spot it. You're able to see through what's in front of us and say, oh my goodness, on that Tupac song right there, he says this line. Let me go look it up. Like, where did that come from? Or when Kendrick Lamar says, I'm no longer a nigga, I'm a niggas. And then you go look up an Ethiopian king. It's like, wait, where did that come from? And so these great creators have dropped nuggets for us, hidden. If we would only appreciate them for the art that they are, we can dig up and then do our reference and our research and say, well, how does that pertain to the life I want to live, or what I'm working on, or whatever it is that you have going on in your world? Sometimes the answer is right in the song that you're listening to, or right in the movie that you played. And it may be a movie you don't even like. That may be where the answers are sometimes as well.
Absolutely. I love that. So having that epiphany moment, paying attention to the signs, again, that kind of takes me away. It takes me back to knowledge, because some people are distracted by invaluable factors and they're not paying attention to what's right in front of them, because they're so consumed in their phones by things that are not substantial.
Something that also makes me think about, sometimes the answer is sometimes people will tell on themselves. Like, people always say it was so eerie that in that interview, this person said something about this particular thing, and then they died from that. And I always say it's not eerie at all. The answers are hidden right there in front of us. So sometimes I'll go listen to an interview and I say, wait, your brand says this, but you just said that, and you just made fun of yourself. And so what's going to happen is 10 to 15 years from now, people are going to play it back and say, oh, that's why these people are, what ended up happening to them happened. If you go back and listen to their interviews, they're telling you that this was going to happen. They're manifesting it through the tongue. The tongue is very powerful. And so if we pay attention to what the tongue does, we can find out where things could be heading. It's almost a foreshadow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. So let's take it up a notch.
Okay.
Which defining moment allowed you to transcend from 3D living, and when did this happen?
Mm. I
Now,
think
people, 3D, 4D, 5D. If you don't know what those dimensions are, we encourage you to go look into it and then tap back into this conversation.
it's something I've been studying, the 3D, 4D, 5D, and I didn't even know what the concept was when I was doing it. And so the way that I'm interpreting 5D is uh, living in a spiritual realm, living in almost your imagination, outer body experience. Uh, I'll say this: before I even knew the concept, I always knew that I was able to tap in to something bigger than me.
Mm,
And I'm going to piggyback off of what I was saying earlier
okay.
about music and movies and culture. And I didn't know it at the time when I was a kid, but I would listen to music at night
Mm-hmm.
and talk radio at night, and I would fall asleep to it. Little did I know what I was really doing was I was creating my reality for the next day, whatever that may be. And what I would
Mm,
find is if I was listening to this particular album, that particular thing was happening the following day. And I used to tell myself all the time, like, yo, you literally can manifest everything around you through your thoughts. And what you fall asleep to could dictate how society and everything else responds to you. I
right.
had no idea the names of all these things or what it all meant. I was just doing it. And
Right.
I say all the time, sometimes we need to pay attention to the youth because, even in nature, there's instincts that we have that we can't even explain. What we didn't read a book on it. No one told
Right.
us about it. No one sat us down and said, hey, let me give you game. It just
Right.
instinctively is ours. And so what I realized now that I've gotten older is I was transforming my energy at night into a new energy because everything
Mm,
is energy, everything is vibration. And
facts.
so I'm listening to a music, I became the music. So at night, I'm going in sleep mode, me as a
Right.
body. Oh, but my spirit is going wherever the music takes me. And that could
Right.
be a wonderful thing, or it depends on what the music is.
Yeah.
And so now that I've gotten older, I've had to kind of cut back because some of the people that I used to look up to as a kid is toxic. It's toxic music. It's toxic movies. It's toxic. And so what I've had to do is I've had to cut out a lot of the things I used to pay attention to because I know even if I'm not sleeping, I know if that energy gets to me, it could alter my frequency even for 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just very careful about and very specific about which sound waves make it to me because it's all waves, it's all vibration. What makes it to me, what doesn't make it to me, and when I'm watching or paying attention to something that doesn't vibrate with me, I'll do that only in a certain position of I have to prepare my mind for what's about to come at me so I can study it.
Right. Right.
And if it's not something I agree with, I have to quickly be able to say, no, I want the opposite of that. And sometimes that works as well. Sometimes finding the opposite of your frequency propels you into what you're looking for. So when I think of 5D, I think about being able to move across the entire galaxy
Mm-hmm.
without necessarily having to physically be there. Being able to
Mm,
go anywhere through thought, through ideas.
mm,
Ideas are the real wealth. Money is just an idea. All of this stuff is just ideas. Everything. The computer I'm talking to you on now is an idea. The microphone was an idea.
right.
Us deciding to have this conversation started with an idea. And so if ideas are the real wealth, then that means ideas are also the poverty, because it's the idea that you have that keeps you in poverty. And I was telling you before about Outwitting the Devil.
Right.
In that book, he specifically says, "Hey, my real goal is to keep people in poverty. If I can do that, they'll never live the dreams that they want to dream."
Right.
So if ideas are poverty or ideas are wealth, whoever controls your ideas or however you take your ideas and manifest those ideas will determine everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the ultimate form of brainwashing. It's the ultimate form of keeping us enslaved. And I noticed that thinkers, high frequency thinkers like yourself and others that I have met along the way, we tend to be loners. We tend to be the ones that are not following the crowd and doing what everybody else is doing, but we're steadily evolving because we are freedom thinkers. And I think that is a major issue in our culture, that you're so gullible and you're so easy to believe just because the government told you or the TV told you or the news told you or even your mom told you, that you believe that that is what you have to do, and you don't.
We think sometimes, and I've been there, so I don't ever want to come off as if I've never have been trapped in that.
Absolutely. Guilty as well.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes we come off as we don't have a choice in the matter. And I know this is controversial. But there was an element of truth to when Kanye West said slavery is a choice. Now, there's probably an element of it being wrong as well. But there's an element of it that is some basis of truth, depending on how we're defining slavery or whatever it may be.
Right.
There are some people choosing in today's world, in modern times, they are choosing to not have a choice. They're choosing to not have power. They're choosing to be less than. They're choosing those things. And then they're complaining about that choice and saying, "Oh no, I can't get this and I can't do this and I don't do." It's like, wait, but this was all a choice. You made these decisions.
Right.
And so we are a byproduct of the decisions we make. The problem that a lot of people have is they think they don't have a choice. This is the way it is.
Yeah.
Whatever they're born into, that's just the way it is. From the wealthiest person to the poorest person, they think, well, this is just the way my life has always been, and this is the way it's always going to be. And I'm here, you're here to say, no, you have a choice. Whatever that choice you make, the universe will start conspiring, which that's another great book, The Alchemist. The universe will start conspiring to start lining up with those choices you make. And so whenever you start seeing things happen to people in the public eye, it's like, well, more than likely, this is a byproduct of all these choices you made. And now you want us to come rescue you after you decided to be famous. You decided to be out there making these decisions. You decided to marry that person, or you decided to be with that business partner. You made these choices over the last 10 years, and now you want us to have sympathy. This is the life you've created.
Exactly. Or even selling your soul, and then you want people to come save you at that point. It's
exactly.
So I think this is a perfect segue to how is our culture hindered the most when it comes to learning? We just mentioned about you still don't want to make the proper choices. You're still choosing to be a slave in this day and age. But what else do you feel like is hindering us? We also mentioned distractions briefly, invaluable information, following, being led blindly. What else do you think could potentially be hindering us where we are not able to come together as a collective and really build an economy that's sustainable for us?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
We want it done for us. And so because we want it done for us, we become idle in our decision making. So we say, I don't have time for this. I'll let them do that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm busy over here. We'll let them do it. And so what we do is we hand over the decision making process to whoever is the decision making process at the time. It could be your attorneys, it could be your politicians, it could be your government, it could be a podcaster, it could be the news outlets, it could be the same thing I was telling you where all the gems are. It can also be your entertainment, your reality TV shows.
Right.
We say, like some people, and if they ever tune into this episode, they'll know who I'm talking about here. There are some people who they don't necessarily, I'm not saying you have to do this, but they don't read the Bible. Oh, no, they don't read the Bible. They just go listen to TD Jakes or whoever their person is. And they say, oh, yeah, I just listen to TD Jakes and, oh, man, I'm ready. I'm ready to go out into the world. The problem with that is you didn't cross-reference anything. And so a subheading of what we were just talking about is there's no cross-referencing to anything. It's, well, this person said this, let's publish it. And it's like, wait, but there's no follow-up questions. There's no digging deeper. There's no, there's no fact-checking to anything. And so to me, it's a double-edged sword here. It's being passive in our decision-making and not cross-referencing anything that comes in front of us.
I love it. I love it. I also see a lot frequently, too, that impatience is an issue. Like you said, we want the work done for us, but at the same token, you want like this overnight instant success. You want to be rich overnight. You're not even thinking wealth like, you're thinking rich like. And so I see a lot of people that are just really impatient with the process. And like you said, then they find themselves trying to see who has done this quickly and who has become an overnight instant, success. And then I'm going to follow what they're doing. And then that person that they're following, 2 to 3 years go by and you don't hear nothing of what that person is doing. So now you're stuck in this position because, again, you're being led blindly because you're being impatient or not wanting to take the time to really study and research for yourself.
Brittany, you bring up a really great point. There is a great book I read a long time ago by Bob Proctor. I think he recently passed away, so rest in peace to Bob Proctor. But energy never dies, so he didn't really pass. He just transformed his energy.
Right.
But there's a great book called You Were Born Rich. And I remember seeing the title and saying, wait, hold on now. You Were Born Rich. And so I'm going to remix it. That's what I tend to do. A lot of my content is finding these really dope things and then putting Derrick Moultrie style on it and say, okay, I'm going to add this beat to it. I'm going to, add this thing to it and just give it.
Generator. Come on, generator.
I love it. And so Bob Proctor said you were born rich. I'm going to say this, and hopefully this helps somebody. You were born wealthy, my friends. You were all born wealthy. And the problem is, if you don't think you're born wealthy, then you're going to do anything possible to become rich. And what I just said is going to hit you later. A lot of people are born wealthy, but they don't know they're born wealthy, so they'll do anything in order to be rich. They'll stab you in the back. They'll cut your throat. They'll lie. They'll cheat. They'll manipulate because they got to be rich. They got to be rich. And so what they're doing is they're going out. They're going to be rich. They're going to be rich or die trying. Right? Now, I love 50. I'm just using that as a...
Oh, of course. Right? Shout out to 50.
Shout out to 50. But that's what they're going to do. They're going to be... They're going to do whatever it takes to be rich. But the thing is, you're already wealthy. Right. So if you're already wealthy, a lot of times, if you just sit in your wealth, the answers will come to you. You don't have to... I say, be wealthy and live forever. Instead of... get rich or die trying, be wealthy and live forever, be eternal. That's where I want our minds to go. I think a lot of times people don't think they're wealthy, and they think they have to become something. But the truth is, they already are. They already are wealthy.
I love that. I love that. There's two things I want to touch on. You said that you're already wealthy, which is a great thing. Sitting in your own powers. You mentioned earlier in the conversation about your natural instincts, stuff that just naturally comes to you. Like, people don't realize that's your God-given gifts and talents, and you have to figure out how to use that in this lifetime to define your purpose and how you're going to serve, heal, educate who you're meant to help resolve issues. And so that, like, hit the nail on the head for me. I love that. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
A lot of people manifest their greatest blessings and then treat it like dirt.
Yes.
So I say this on Twitter at least every 4 months. It pops back in my brain. Be careful. Oh, I'll say something. I'll say, when you get what you manifested, make sure you treat it right. Because what ends up happening is we'll say, I want that job. And then the job shows up, and then they get the job and they're like, I don't like this job. This isn't what I thought it would be. And then so they treat it badly. Right. They say, well, no, I don't want this job anymore. I want this. And so then that thing comes and they treat it badly. And then they say, well, I don't want that. I want this. And so they start getting almost everything they've ever wanted, and then they appreciate none of it. They were never grateful for any of it. And so when the real thing pops up, I mean, these were important things, but they weren't, they were just stepping stones. When the real thing pops up, and this is some deep stuff, when the real thing they always wanted comes around, they won't even recognize it. It will be right there in front of them. And because they've been pushing this away and pushing that away and pushing, it's like, you just missed your greatest blessing. And that people say that, what's for you, you won't miss, and it'll always get to you. Maybe. I don't, it's a great saying. Right. I think deep in my heart, I do think people miss out on really great blessings because they don't see it as a blessing. They see it as normal. I was reading the other day about trees and fruit trees. And I think Miles Monroe was talking about this one day. Great speaker. He's also passed away as well. Rest in peace. He says people love the fruit, but very few people sit and talk to the tree. There's going to be people want the thing that looks like the blessing. Right. Whether it be the car, the jewelry, the house, the building, the whatever, but the real wealth of it all was the wisdom to acquire those things. It was the thing that, because see, the tree, depending on what tree it is, this thing can live 100 years, 1,000 years, depending on what tree it is. The thing that's going to be there forever, or for as long as most things, we don't care about that thing. But the fruit, we got to get the fruit because, the fruit will be rotten soon. And so they rush to go get the fruit. Let's get the fruit. They know it's going to decay, but they got to get the fruit. But the tree going to be there 1,000 years. And we're not paying no attention to the tree. No love. And so what I've been trying to train myself is when I see the fruit, I appreciate the fruit, but where did it come from? Let me go talk to that tree. And I also say this a lot, too, on my Twitter of ideas sometimes. I say, never hide the plug. So you can see who will push you out the way to get to it. And so I've noticed that there's people out there that they'll stand by certain people and say, I know this person. Look at me. There's no link to go get to that person. There's no way of also us having access to them. It's just a status symbol of I'm this person. And so what I tend to do is I said, here's the link. You can access to this person. You have full access. If they want to work with you, You can reach out to this person. It's all yours. And then I just sit back and I watch people push and shove, and they're just trying to get to the fruit. They want the fruit. And they'll literally take the fruit, and I apologize if this is too graphic, and piss on the tree.
Go ahead. Right.
They'll take the fruit and piss on the tree, and then they wonder why they can't find the tree later in life. They're like, where was that tree with that great fruit? I believe we're talking about 5D. I believe that when you mistreat things in this universe, they'll get to the point where they'll be hidden from you. They'll still be in the same spot, but you just won't be able to find it. That same tree, that same person, whoever it is, it will all disappear. Other people will have access to it. You'll know it's there, but you just can't find it.
Right.
I truly believe that a lot of people will piss on their blessings trying to get to the thing that is going to decay in a few weeks. The fruit won't going to last but so long before the next season comes. It's the tree that matters. It's the thing that's eternal, the thing that's going to last the longest, that's going to supply what you need. That's who you need to be associated with. That's who you need to bring into your inner circle, is the tree. Right. And knowledge of how to plant more trees.
Facts.
Sorry, I don't know, a little
no,
bit.
That right there. Yes, this is what we need. It's all about knowledge acquisition. So I know with this next question, we've touched on a lot. I don't know how much more we can add to it, but what do you feel like is the greatest myth that our culture still believes, therefore leaves us shackled and brainwashed? You know, we've talked about following the blind. You know, we talked about, oh, they have this status, so I should be connected to them. You know, we talked about, you know, you're wanting overnight instant success, you know, so many different subjects to touch on, because I feel like a lot of our culture does not, they're in denial and they don't want to accept what things really are. So they kind of just go with the flow of things. And then that causes you to get even more caught up and more shackled and continue to be, what I hate to say this, but mediocre. Like you're being mediocre because you're staying in this little box that you're not willing to step outside of, because this is what society is telling you that you have to do.
I don't know if this is the greatest myth. It's something that I'll probably ponder for a few weeks, and maybe in the future I'll come back and talk about another one that popped in my brain.
I love it.
This is the one that popped in my brain.
Okay.
So I'll answer it as if it is the greatest myth. The greatest myth that I believe that is out here is that the answers are outside of you. That I have to, and I was just listening to even some of the things you were, referencing of things that we've been talking about. I have to know this person. I got to do this. I got to put this out there, and this person got, and this everything is pointing outwardly.
Yep.
And whether you are a person who believes the same things I believe, I truly believe the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of God is within. And what you cultivate inside of you is what's going to manifest outside of you.
Thanks.
And I believe that a lot of people have it backwards. And so what they do is they see something outside of them, hoping that it transforms something inside of them. But I believe by doing it in reverse order, it actually slowly kills the inside of who you are.
Agreed.
You lose a little bit of self and outbursts ego. And when ego pops up, then you start mistreating other people that don't measure up to the thing that you were once pointing to as the object of your affection. And anything that's beneath that is not worthy for you. Not knowing that everybody is their own tree. Everybody produces some type of fruit.
Yes.
In this day and age, especially if you live in these big cities, we don't want to get to know people anymore.
Mm-mm.
We just want their gifts and their talents, their fruit. And we don't stop to ask them, who are you? How did you get here? And how do you
Right.
see the world? Because that would take too much time for, that's how they're thinking. But I've always found that you don't need a lot of people. You just need the right people you can get to know on a deep level. And all the answers will come to you through those relationships. But that wouldn't mean that you would have to value people. You would have to value long-term friendships. You would have
Yes.
to value those things. And what ends up happening is people play a short-term game, and then they mess up those relationships and they run to the next short-term game. They mess up
Mm.
those relationships and they run to the next short-term game.
Mm-hmm.
And sooner or later, the game runs out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Status is a zero-sum game. When you're trying to play status games, that means you have to push somebody else down for you to feel
Right.
bigger. But what they don't know is the thing that gives them status is the crowd. Saying,
Hmm.
ooh, look what you did. Look at what you did. You're higher than them. But what
Yeah.
happens when the crowd changes? And the crowd doesn't value that anymore.
Mm.
Now you're back to square one. And now you got to go find something else that the crowd values that could push something else down and make you bigger.
Exactly. Exactly. Ooh, that was, I think that was the best one. I love it. I love it. Yes. Even I want to touch on how you were stating, you're seeking that status and then you move here. You mentioned earlier about like the low hanging fruit. It kind of is like the reference of Christmas. You're that kid, you want these toys, you want these things, and, you're trying to be good leading up to that point, but you kind of get a little mischievous because you just want, and then you get the toy on Christmas Day, and by the second week of January, you don't care about that toy. You're not worried about that toy no more. You're moving on to the next thing that's going to what you feel like is going to make you feel better or make you feel validated or make you feel needed, wanted, whatever the situation may be. So I love
The
that.
deep part about what you're saying is
Mm-hmm.
the toy is only as important as your imagination allows the toy to be. So if I
Yes.
get my new Batman toy, which Batman was one of my favorite characters, that's why I'm using it as a
Same.
reference, right? I get my Batman toy, my Batmobile, and I'm playing with my Batmobile, and I can fly around the city in the toy, right? And so
Right.
on Christmas Day, I'm so excited, but it only lasts as long as my imagination goes. And that's what I love about movies like Toy Story. I posted something about Toy Story 3 the other day, and what people may not know, if you haven't watched Toy Story 3, I think it's my favorite one
Mm-hmm.
out of the four. The kid in Toy Story grows up. He's about to go to college. His imagination is running out. He ain't got time
Right.
for these toys no more. Throw them in the attic. Throw them away. Get rid of the toys. Burn them
Right.
all. You see the movie, it's not exactly like that. I'm being over the top, but um, and it's one of the only Toy Stories where I'd be wanting to shed a tear because I remember I met Magic Johnson when I was like 7 years old, NBA player, Los Angeles Lakers. I was living in Hawaii. My mom takes me to the mall. He just dropped his book. He had just, I'm not sure he survived AIDS, but he had wrote a book about his experience. And he comes to the mall and has a book signing. And I remember meeting him, and I'm just Magic Johnson, and
Right.
it's like bigger than life. And one of the things he told me, I'm sure he may not remember who I am,
Right.
and one day he will. He tells me, never lose your imagination. So
Mm.
I've never lost my imagination, because Magic Johnson told me, right? But it makes me think of those toys. The toys are only as valuable as what our mind has allowed it to become.
Right.
And once you realize almost everything is a toy in a way, and that
Mm-hmm.
same type of sphere, the businesses you run, the the experiences you have, everything is really all just imagination of how you see it. And
Right.
so once that imagination runs out, now that trip to Bali just not that important anymore because my imagination doesn't. Sometimes what people love to say is that they're going somewhere because their
Mm,
imagination says, "Oh, all the wonderful things that could happen," and then they go there
right.
a few times and they're like, "Yeah, Bali's okay," because now
Mm-hmm.
they've ran out of their imagination. They've seen it 4 or 5 times, and
Right.
so it truly comes down to the imagination and our ideas of how we value something and what could be done with that. That's why there's some people that can take something that looks like nothing and turn it into everything because their imagination allows them to.
Right.
And so I pay attention closely to people and see, do they have the imagination needed to truly
Mm,
build the life they want? One more thing, I know we may have to go soon. The I never I never been big on trying to climb, and this is more metaphorical,
mm-hmm.
climb the mountain. Because I feel like our imagination allows us to move mountains. I feel like, why should I have to go to the top when the top is inside of me? The mountain is inside of me. There's a great book, and I don't remember who wrote this. The Mountain is You is the name of the book. The mountain is you. And so why do I have to go to an imaginary top? Why do I have to play these imaginary games? Why do I have to let the whole world see me? Someone told me one time before, this is a great quote by them, but I have to disagree with them. They told me people do business with who they like and know. That's true. Okay.
So
There's some
true.
truth, right? But okay, so do you like and know the people who made your toothpaste? Do you like and know the people who made your food or delivered your food? Do you like it is a great quote and I do agree with it. You should like and know people. I get it. But there's a lot of things in this universe that you don't even like or know these people, but it's so much value, it doesn't matter. And so the answer is duality. Yes, you should like and know people and you should do great business with them. I agree. I agree. But you should be so valuable that even if they don't like you and don't know
Mm,
you, they still gotta buy from you. I,
mm,
besides us knowing who Bill Gates is because of recently he's become the richest person, we were
right.
buying the computer because it was the computer. It was innovative. The PC. But now that you don't like Bill Gates, or for those who do, I apologize. But if you don't like Bill Gates and you don't know him, but you still got to get the computer.
Right.
That's how much value you should be bringing into the world. That even if they don't like you, they still got to rock with you. And there's
Right.
something about me where I'm like, that's kind of the position I want to be in. Of course, I want people to like and know me, but I want to be so valuable that you're using my products and services and you don't even know it.
Right. I love that. Shifting your minds, people, transcending, shifting your minds. Before we go into this next question, I feel like it's a perfect segue because when you mentioned Magic Johnson, I said it's so funny because I was going to bring up Steve Harvey because you mentioned earlier about wanting, people wanting status, and then how people you treat them along the way. And then once they get to a certain level, they might not have that same sort of following or same form of respect because of how they treated people. So I met Steve Harvey when I was younger. He was a complete asshole. My dad almost beat the
Mm,
shit out of him because he was just a dick, like for no reason, just being
mm,
explicit. And so I never really rocked with him like that. So then now I see him giving these speeches and motivation about black people and trying to get rich and trying to get money. And I'm just like, I don't believe shit that you say. I don't respect you in any form or fashion, or would I not be led by you because I feel like he's just a pawn in our culture for us to listen to, and he's not really building wealth or teaching us really how to build wealth. I feel like if anything, he's teaching us how to have a rich mentality and not how to be wealthy. So I just wanted to tap on that really briefly while we were talking about celebrities. And that brings me into who are influential people in our culture, or influential people in your life in general, people that you may have known or you've never even met before, but who do you feel has been the most instrumental individual during your evolution?
Wow, that's a great question. I'm trying to think who pops in my mind, and this may sound a little cheesy. It will. It'll sound cheesy. It's people like you. It's it's the people around me that are growing daily and putting in the work and okay with being wrong or right or whatever it is, and finding the best versions of themselves and doing it in a way that inspires others. I used to be that guy that, man, if I don't know, I'm making up names here, but if LL Cool J didn't do it, it ain't cool. Or if this person ain't do it, it's like,
Right.
as you mature, I started realizing the real wealth. It's the everyday person. I always respect the everyday person who is wealthy. And I'm not talking about just money, but they have the opportunity to choose the life that they want. The farmer. I remember I did an internship with a financial company that they only finance agricultural products. And so I would meet all these farmers, and they got acres and acres of land, and they're sitting on millions. Nobody knows them. And I don't think these things were happening by accident. I just started realizing I wanted to be more like them. Not necessarily a farmer. I could be a farmer too. But I really enjoyed the people who were living their day-to-day lives, and it was just so normal rather than the big lights. And I need everybody to know me. And I don't know, because I know that's not going to last long. There's an analogy of the butterfly and the moth, and it's a little inaccurate, but it serves a great purpose that, when a caterpillar comes out, you never know if it's going to be a butterfly or a moth. The butterfly comes out in the sun, in the daylight, and it's beautiful, they say. And the moth comes out at night, and you can always find the moth being attracted to the light, the lamp, or whatever is up there. And sometimes the moth gets burnt by the light. And so there's this really great analogy that some people are chasing stardom, and they're the moth. You meet them, they're a caterpillar, and then they turn into a moth, and you never know who's going to be who. And so I guess the real answer is the butterflies. You say who inspires me, or it's the caterpillars who become butterflies, who don't get sucked into becoming a moth and going off and chasing after imaginational things, which is all imagination, but chasing after someone else's imagination instead of having their own. And I didn't even realize it until just now, until you asked the question. I think that the main difference is the light is somebody else's imagination that people are chasing and saying, I got to go get that. Somebody else created that thing, and people are like, I got to go after this this thing that's imaginary. And then over here, the butterfly is saying, I'm going to follow my own imagination. So it's two imaginations. There's nothing wrong with imagination, but which one are you living, your imagination or somebody else's? Are you stuck in somebody else's reality or your own? And I think that's where, and I'm not even saying one is right or wrong. I'm just saying for me, I like people who are like building their own imagination up. And it's like, okay, this is my reality. This is what I'm rocking with. If you rock with it, I rock with it. So I think those are the people that I like to gravitate towards and build with. And they're free thinkers. They're able to manifest their own world. They don't need anyone else to validate them.
Absolutely. I love that you said that. And thank you, gratitude, for that information. I definitely want to send gratitude to you for building a network for the Black Equity Network and the Acquisition Network. And in a few moments, I want you to explain the difference between the two before we leave.
Sure.
But also just being instrumental in my life, because there's so much information that you have given me since we've met almost 3 years ago that it's your delivery that the way, and I don't know if it's the Scorpio on Scorpio, I don't know if it's the generator on generator, but when you deliver information to me, you always make me go, and you're not maliciously saying, I see you acting this way. You'll just drop a line or a resource, and I'm like, okay, let me think about that. But if somebody else would have came at me and approached me in a different way, I would have been ready to sting, like, what is going on? Why are you approaching me this way? Why are you, judging me or whatnot? It's your delivery on the information and the resources to help me better myself that I have always appreciated and has been very essential in my evolution, since I feel like I have left a very low vibrational life that I was living half of 2020 and before then. But like the second half of 2020 since then, I've just maneuvered from being that mediocre person that I spoke about earlier, being that person that's inside the box, being that person that I have to have certain acronyms after my name. I have to have a certain title before my name. I have to be on this list. I have to be number one at this. I have to let everybody know that I'm the best at, I just have grown up and matured so much because of your delivery. It's like you saw my gifts and you poured into me in a way that I don't think that you realized, that allowed me to acquire knowledge in the best way possible for me so I can build my purpose.
Wow. Well, all glory to the Most High, Yahweh. But I do say thank you back to you. I was going to follow up with that. Do you think you accept the delivery because we took time to get to know each other? Or was it always from even before we took time to build with each other, it was always a delivery? Which one do you think it is?
I think building that relationship, that social synergy, like you nourished a relationship, even though we met, shout out to Natasha Johnson with the self-publication. That's who we met through. And then once we did the podcast on the Black Equity Network, we just kind of started building from there. And I'm not one to trust easily, but your energy was infectious and it allowed me to be comfortable and really respect how you were delivering information to me. I feel like people are so quick to, I'm a coach and I'm a consultant and I'm an expert and you need to do this and it has to be done this way. And you just presented the gift and you just set the box down, and then you let me kind of open it and unravel and discover what was on the inside on my own. And so I appreciate that relationship was formed, because if it was not formed, I probably would not have been as receptive to it, being at the frequency and the mindset that I was at 3 years ago.
Well, I'll say this, and we're giving the listeners some inside knowledge here, which is part of knowledge acquisition.
For sure.
You chose to have a spirit of, I know nothing. Basically, if we go back and listen to this whole entire episode, there's some key things in it where you chose those things. You chose, when you and I first met, you were a sponge. You wanted this information. And so because you were hungry for information, and every time the fruit came, you didn't forget about the tree.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you could have taken certain information and said, oh, I got what I need, I'm gone. And people have done that, of course.
Right.
They just run in, get what they need. It's almost like a heist. I'm like, it's so skillful the way that some people run in and they just take the jewels, and the sad part is sometimes they got to stab you in the stomach to let you know that they were there. It's like, damn, like,
right.
But you sat down and sat next to the tree and said, oh, there's an apple, but I'm still going to sit here next to the tree. And we had conversations, we built up. And so I think for a lot of people, I think the knowledge that they can acquire from this episode is, will you respect the trees in your life enough. I remember sitting down with my great grandfather, in Charleston, South Carolina, and he had reached a point where I was probably like 10 years old. He had reached a point where I don't think I could understand anything he had to say. I think he was missing like teeth, and I didn't understand nothing he was saying. But I sat outside with him for like 4 hours one day, and we had the greatest conversation about I have no idea. Because I didn't understand what he was saying, but he was talking to me.
Right.
But I felt a frequency. I knew, I knew when he was laughing. I knew when he was, projecting himself. And I was just sitting there because I just wanted to know the tree. And I didn't know this at the time.
Right.
And I think a lot of people probably in his life were always trying to get fruit from him, always trying to take from him. And I honestly had nothing to take because I didn't even understand the words he was saying.
Right.
Right. And so for me, it was just, I wanted to know who this guy was because I didn't grow up next to my great grandparents. I was an Army kid and traveling, the United States. And so I finally had a chance to sit down next to this dude. And I spent as much time as I possibly could with him. And then, he passes away later on. I just think the biggest thing is, if we don't appreciate the people in our lives, we'll never really unravel the true gifts, because the fruit that we get on that first time meeting somebody, if you know the fruit is juicy, right? You know it's perfect. You know it's the best fruit ever. Wouldn't you want to know, well, dang, what kind of soil was this tree in? Or how was this cultivated? Or what's the best way to grow this fruit tree so that I can create this for myself? But sometimes some people, they just want their basket of apples and they gone.
Right.
And so I appreciate you for wanting to even know who I am. Before we started this conversation, I told you I haven't been interviewed in years. And I know people have a lot to ask me because they've been talking about me. I've been posting stuff. I've been calling people out by name. I've been saying all kinds of things, and nobody's interviewed me. And so I'm just like, okay. And I don't hide. I don't really hide anything. I just push it all out and say, hey, here's what I found. And you can decide for yourself what you're going to do with that. And there's a reason why a lot of people haven't been interviewing me and talking to me, is because a lot of people have to protect their imaginary relationships with other people.
Right.
And I'm glad that I've had the opportunity to voice my thoughts, my ideas, and not be silenced and be able to speak freely. So I appreciate you for providing this platform to do that.
Absolutely. I'm about to say, thanks for being my tree, because I'm the fruit that fell off your tree that got planted next to you. Now I'm growing my own tree. So I'm hoping that my fruit can now fall off into others, and then they grow next to us, and we just keep.
Yes. And then you have an orchard or a vineyard, or however you want to see. It could be bushes, creating those grapes, or it could be a full-on tree that produces, the apples or the fruit.
Right.
Ask me, what is Black Equity Network? And what is Acquisitions Network?
For sure.
So for me, Black Equity Network, and a lot of people don't know this, what Black Equity Network was designed to do was give Black entrepreneurs and investors access to things they never knew existed. And being able to work alongside other people to go do that thing, because sometimes doing it alone can be a little tough. I've had to do things alone a lot. And so if you need someone to go do that with, or a mentor or somebody you can vibe with, just to double check your sources and say, hey, I'm going in this direction. Can I just call you for a quick 5-minute call? It was designed so then, I can pull up these episodes, I can reach out, or I'll reach out to DJ, I'll reach out to Derrick, and make sure we make that connection. And then as I go acquire this building, acquire this business, acquire this, I have a team of people. Maybe it's a lawyer, maybe it's an accountant, maybe it's a an investor, I have everything I need right here, accessible, just in case I need backup. I'm the backup.
Yes.
Our network is the backup in case you are ready to go to war. The problem is people don't appreciate backup until they need it. And so a lot of people are out here running amok. Yeah, I've always wanted to say that on a podcast. I don't know if I've said that one. They're out here running amok and they think everything's fine.
Yep.
And then something happens and they're like, well, where do I turn? Where do I go? Now you see our importance, because at the end of the day, I'm not going anywhere. Our network isn't going anywhere. And when it's time to fight, when it's time to say, hey, you are using redlining tactics to make sure that this person doesn't have access to capital or access to that property, I'm going to be the person that pulls up and fights on your behalf. And so but a lot of people don't know that because they haven't gotten into a fight yet.
Right.
And so that was the idea there. And then the next level of that idea is acquisitions network, where, okay, I want to go acquire these different types of assets. Who's already doing that?
Right.
So then I can go be a part of that. Maybe I'm a small person on the deal at first, and it will grow and I'll learn so I can be the big person on the deal. And so on that level, it's less about if you're black, white, green, yellow, whatever it is. It's more about asset classes.
Right.
What asset class do I want to be in? How do I diversify my portfolio? And who should I know to go do those things? And so a wise person, I would think, would say, well, shoot, if I find all the asset classes that I want on Acquisitions Network, and then I find a person on Black Equity Network to consult with and back me up, so maybe an accountant that's in real estate, I'll hire that accountant and pay them right. And I'll say, hey, I'm about to go acquire this commercial property over here, and I want to make sure that I'm doing it the right way and all my numbers look right. How do we work together to make sure that happens?
Right.
What is your process? And I would combine both networks and say, this is the game I could play. But in order to do that, you have to have the imagination. A lot of people pull up, right? I know I'm a little bit over my time.
Oh, no, you're fine. I love it. Let's go.
A lot of people pull up on Black Equity Network,
right,
and Acquisitions Network, and their imagination's just not there. And so all they think this is about is getting an interview and having fancy clothes on and saying, look at me, and I want to be, right?
Right.
And that's part of it. You want to look good and feel good and play good, like Deion Sanders says, right? You want to do those things. But what it's really about is creating, and it's going to sound like I'm defining something by saying something, but creating Black equity. You should be able to pull from the resources we've provided,
for sure,
and be able to accomplish anything on this planet that your heart desires. And you should be able to have access to the people that can help you do that. If anybody out there is showing you all these big people that they're sitting next to, but you can't access them, I'm calling it out and saying, then what was the point of you sitting down with them if only you get to talk to them?
Right.
Why are you telling us, well, look who I'm next to and look what I've accomplished? If we don't get access to them, it's all fake anyway. We can find them on another interview. You're not the first person to interview these people. The difference between what is out there and what is here is you can access everything. I'm not going to stop you.
Right.
But I am going to ask, why don't you reach out to me to make sure that the introduction is the best way possible? Because I've had that too. People will just pick and plug and say, I'm going to take that. So why don't you reach out to me? So that's the only thing I'll say about that. People don't have the imagination to utilize it the right way.
I love it. I love it. So to wrap up our last question, what advice do you have for someone struggling to detach themselves from low vibrational energies? I know that, we mentioned before, zodiac signs, human design, things like that. So we kind of naturally have that bucket in our system and don't have a problem with separating what we no longer serves us. But what about those that are just now? What about the people that are like me 3 years ago that are just now trying to step away from things that are toxic or low vibrational or conditioned, or conditions that society has led us to believe that we have to do?
So I'm gonna plug another book. It's
Plug it.
called the Third Circle Theory. The Third Circle Theory. In this book, it talks about how on the first circle of life, all we can really see is what is in front of us. We only know what we know, right? It's only what's right there in front of us. And then on the second circle, we can see our family and our friends and the immediate thing. But once you reach and ascend to the third circle, then you pull yourself out of the game and you can look down, not down in a bad way, but you can look down on the game and see everything, even yourself and the pieces as a piece within the game. It's almost like that 5D that we were talking about earlier. So what I would say to someone who doesn't want to be low vibrational anymore is you first would have to have awareness of what low vibration is. I would say study vibrations. If Albert Einstein, I think it says, yo, everything is vibration. If he's saying that, and if you like that source, and you say, okay, well, I agree, well, then go study vibrations. Go study, well, what's a high vibrational and what's a low vibrational? And then start looking at the characteristics and say, like one day I was studying the word nice and the word kind. This is the kind of things that I do. I'll just find something and say, well, let me study it for today. And to most people, they're like, well, that's not profitable. Oh, yes, it is. Once you find out the difference between nice and kind, it changes every conversation you have.
Yeah.
Nice is when people say things to appease the person. It's a people-pleasing situation.
Right.
Kind is someone who's going to be very upfront, even if it hurts your feelings.
Yes.
They're going to say it in a loving way, but they're really here to give you the cold hard truth. And so once you know that, once you can dissect that in every conversation, you're like, oh, this person's being nice to me. They're trying to play me. And how do I know that? Because I'm studying nice and kind. I'm looking at, well, what kind of phrases do people use on nice? Oh, what kind of phrases do people use on kind? And then I'm cross-referencing that with my own conversations and cross-referencing that with myself. Am I a nice person or am I a kind person? Who do I choose to be? And everything is a choice. And so I choose to be kind.
Absolutely.
It's not easy. But I choose to be kind based off of the information provided.
Right.
But I would have to then study that first and look into it and say that this is a profitable use of my time. Most people think that if there's not clout attached to it, if there's not money attached to it, then it's not profitable. But there's not much in life that's more profitable than learning how to be kind. Because once you can be kind, then when your enemy or whoever comes around to disturb your peace and they realize it's not working and they got to go run somewhere else to go try to make you upset.
Yes.
And they're doing all these little things to get your attention and it's not working. You realize your kindness is paying off. And people who see it from the outside will say, that's the kind of person I want on my team. And then they come and say, yo, I saw what happened with that situation. I want you to be a business partner over here. Or I want you to be an investor on this project over here. Because kindness is eternal. It'll last forever.
Right.
Niceness is very short term. It's only so long you can pretend.
Ooh. Yes. Two things that you said. Knowing the different vibrations. I love that. You just spoke about nice and kind. So being kind to yourself, because you're going to learn that you're low vibrational in this moment. It might be one or two things, or it might be everything that you're doing, but you need to be prepared. Once you start doing that research that, damn, I'm low vibrational as hell and I need to make some changes. So I love, love, love that you mentioned that. So this has been an amazing conversation. I'm so excited about all the information that we talked about. Again, guys, to recap, this is the frequency of elevation, which is knowledge acquisition. We learned how to acquire knowledge in order to thoroughly fulfill our purpose, to acquire wealth and achieve optimal wellness. We were on today with Derrick Moultrie, founder of the Black Equity Network, the Acquisitions Network. I didn't even mention an investor guru as well. So thank you.
I'm not a guru. I'm not a guru.
Well, I call you a guru, even though you feel like that's like you saying, don't say mentor. Okay, brother. Like, I look at you in that light, but I definitely want you to plug yourself before we leave out. Where can they find you on Instagram, website, LinkedIn, like whatever information you want to put in?
Sure. You can, if you want to link with me on LinkedIn, that's cool. My name is Derrick Moultrie on there, I believe, or DJ Moultrie, one of the two. Actually, I just launched a recent newsletter that'll be coming out all year called A Wealth of Ideas. Each month, we're going to be digging into the biggest ideas in the world that nobody's talking about. And so the first month, we're talking about renewable energy and how the reason why I think it's so important to talk about these ideas is because you can get wealthy, even though you already are wealthy, but
right.
Monetary. You can get wealthy by doing the right thing. I know that sounds crazy. I know people don't want to hear that, but you can literally create generational wealth through saving the planet. Because what use is the planet if we're just destroying it? And so our first conversation is about renewable energy. We talk about some of the really great ideas there. I guess I'll plug a little bit. I'm looking forward to having a conversation very soon with a physicist about nuclear energy, nuclear fusion. And recently they just discovered that they could, harness the power of nuclear fusion. And so I'm looking forward to that conversation. What does that mean for the planet? Is it real? And then I'm also seeing that they're finding stones that create their own energy out in Africa that's been circulating too. I'm like, so these are some of the things that I'm excited about. And it's not, the fancy stuff. It's actually natural resources. And so connect with me if you are into natural resources, aerospace, anything big idea I want to talk about. But yes, you can also find our network on Instagram, Black Equity Network, Acquisitions Network. We got some other things cooking up too. I can't give it all up right away, but I want to connect with like-minded people who they want to go to another level of thought, not another level of attention, not another level of clout, another level of thought. Like, what if we take this and spin it on its head? And what you'll find with a lot of the content that I create is I just take ideas and say, how do we flip it in a way that will be digestible to understand, but then also will make us question everything. And that's really the goal. If we're not questioning everything, then that means everything is getting in. And if everything is getting in, who knows what that is? And to go back to the beginning of this episode, outwitting the devil, the whole goal is to control your ideas, your mind, so they can keep you in poverty. And so anybody who's telling you how to think, how to be, whatever it may be, I'm a little cautious of them because I don't know who sent them. And so I just find people who embrace your ideas and encourage your ideas and help you birth your ideas. And I want to thank you, Brittany, so much for providing this platform for us to have these conversations and creating your own tree and creating more trees so that we can continue to have food for thought in this wonderful journey that we call life.
I love the whole, like you said, another level of thought. It's all about shifting our minds. And like you said, having the proper questions. One of my favorite lines from the movie Love Jones is when Lorenz Tate, Nia Long tells him, so you think you have all the answers? He was like, no, I just have all the questions. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
love that. So yes, guys, please be sure to follow Derrick. I will be putting the information in the description of the bio. Also, be sure to like our podcast. You can subscribe to us on our website at NNG Consulting. That's N is in new, N is in nation, G is in goddess, consulting.org. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel because you'll be able to see the full video on both Spotify and YouTube. And then, of course, the audio on all of our others, podcast platforms. So we want to send gratitude to all of our listeners. It is Black History Month, but of course, guys, we don't care about just these measly 28 days. We're Black 365. So we hope that we made history with you guys today and provided you with the knowledge that's going to help you to shift your mind and truly transcend. So we are manifesting a positive, productive, and peaceful remainder of your Wednesday. And we'll be speaking to you guys next week. Peace.